So thank you for joining me. As you've heard, I'm the founder of GUD, which is also a private sector partner for the Great Green Wall. A little bit about me. I was born in probably one of the most disadvantaged areas of South Africa, apartheid South Africa. And my father's Chinese, my mother is colored, and so I was born as like human contraband. And why is this relevant? Well, I'm standing here before you, at COP, and that requires quite a lot of self-empowerment to be able to take that journey. And today's theme is power to the people. So I would really like that to resonate throughout what I've got to say, because the climate transition would require quite a lot of self-empowerment. So power to the people, what does that actually mean? At COP, the most overriding criticism is whether policymakers can get it right. Are they going to deliver on the promises and commitments that they are making this year? And perhaps they will, perhaps they won't, but I'm here to tell you that it actually doesn't matter. They are not, they do not have the capacity or expertise to save us from the climate catastrophe that we're all trying to avoid. It's going to require collective effort. At GUD, we say only you can empower yourself to be powerful. And so communities and private sector, they need to step up to the plate and empower themselves to be powerful. So what does GUD do? We support communities of the Great Green Wall Initiative through land-based, market-based land restoration. And all the countries bordering the Sahara Desert have come together to restore 100 million hectares. And to put it into perspective, it's a landmass the size of the United Kingdom, France, and Germany combined. And the population is around 90 million people. More than half are under the age of 25. So if you think about the migrant crisis and what that means, it's impacting us in Europe. It's actually got, it's a global issue, a global phenomenon. And so it's not a problem solely for the people of the Sahel and just to try and combat desertification. It's not solely an African problem because it will impact the rest of the world. And we have such a huge growing population of people that have zero access to opportunity. So what we do is we work together with the communities, not just to offer support, but to actually make them self-sufficient and thrive by creating value chains and new markets. So another way that communities can empower themselves is through carbon market. Now, carbon markets is such, carbon credits and carbon markets, it's so controversial. Everyone talks about greenwashing and how adversely it affects communities. But carbon markets are one of the few powerful mechanisms that can actually empower last mile communities because it places them and the carbon assets that they generate in the global market space, and it allows them to thrive and operate like global institutions in a way that was never possible before. We call them the last mile communities, but when we think of the climate crisis, they're the first port of call when it comes to nature-based solutions. So why is it that these communities only earn 15 to 30% of the revenue share of the carbon assets that they generate through their hard work and toil? So we really need to think about transitioning away from carbon-centric approaches and thinking more holistically about how we can empower communities and help them to empower themselves and move away from being dependent on support and grants and actually creating opportunities for themselves. So the carbon market is actually distorted from what Richard Sandor and Maurice Strong had initially envisioned when they first conceived offsetting. Offsetting is making right what you have caused as a detriment to the environment and to society. And it's not about cherry picking. And this is the problem with ESG today. We are always just thinking about the E. We're emission-centric. We are carbon-centric. But what about the S? And so I say an astounding amount of indigenous populations today and biodiversity has been adversely affected by this carbon transactional approach, because we forget about the most important factor, which is the social factor. So power to the people, therefore, has to consider another dynamic. Institutions are considering themselves to be sustainable when they are actually just emission-centric. And so, you know, I think it's frankly a little bit soulless, and we talk about greenwashing, but I call this whitewashing. When you have sophisticated stewardship reporting and you invest $2 trillion in fintech, imagine what that $2 trillion could do in the nature-based space, what it could do for communities, and what impact that really could make. So, you know, I think there needs to be a paradigm shift where we're not cherry-picking ESG and we recognize that it's the triple bottom line and not the 3 bottom lines. You see that in the SDGs as well. Large institutions, they will impact an array of SDGs negatively, but in their stewardship reporting, they will cherry-pick what they think is suitable and makes them sort of mitigate the impacts that they've created. But they need to be really more holistic. And if large institutions can raise $2 trillion for one company, then I'm sure they can meet 17 goals and tick them off in their stewardship reporting. So, just lost my space, sorry for that. I think there is true power in considering value and values. And when we're thinking about ESG, we should be prioritizing the S, because if you prioritize the S, E and G becomes simple. Because if you're thinking of the long term, E and G, it's just an automatic process that goes into supporting the S. So with that, going back to the theme of power to the people, I want you to think of this. Only you can do what no one else can do. Only you can empower yourself to be powerful. And so only communities can really empower themselves to be powerful, because no one is going to save them. And when we think about that, then that will help them navigate, you know, the multitude of issues that they have to face when thinking about climate adaptation and resilience. And on that note, I thank you all for your time.